were telling me a little bit about your acting career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super interested. My favorite segment from your show is Friday mornings.
Nick Shager.
Yeah, I love that. I tune in. I listen to all the. I don't get to watch half the movies that you guys talk about, but it's really interesting to me. I've always loved the movie industry, and like to hear people who really know the details of it, like it makes it more interesting for me.
I'm with you. And when I first got into radio, this was one of the segments that I pitched, and the bosses all thought it was ridiculous. And everywhere I've been, Minneapolis, Fargo, here, it's always been an incredibly popular segment. And what I've told people about sports talk is that sports fans, I viewed my show as like a steakhouse. When you go, you want the filet, you want the T-bone, you whatever, but you also want a salad, you want an onion, a bloomin' onion. If you're going to Outback, you want all the side dishes, and we want to give people that as well. My theater career, I was a classically trained actor, and I trained under John Houseman, who was from Paper Chase and started Juilliard and what have you.
Wow.
And it was what I always wanted to do. I love literature. I didn't I wasn't really interested in TV or film or anything like that. I wanted to be on stage.
And did you do that from while you were a kid?
I did not. I was an athlete. I was a
Really?
I was a basketball player. I was a Division I recruited basketball player.
Okay.
And I was sort of that weird anomaly of the athlete and the actor. But when I got to college, John Houseman, anybody who remembers him from Paper Chase or the Smith Barney commercials, he saw me one day practicing. I was at USC, just in what was called the men's gym, and he said, "Mr. Gabriel, you'll have to decide whether you want to play this game with the sphere or you want to join us on the boards," because the seasons overlapped, and I couldn't do both, so I stuck with theater. But yeah, I based myself in New York. Did. A ton of Shakespeare, a ton of Moliere, Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, and worked in Edinburgh, Scotland, worked on tour in England, worked with people like James Earl Jones, with founding artistic director of the Royal Shakespeare Company.
What was James Earl Jones like? I mean, everybody thinks he's this immortal voice that we all remember growing up.
Well, he is that, right? He is that, but he's about 6'1", 6'2", right in there. He is a big teddy bear.
Really?
But when I met him in Stratford, Connecticut, and I was doing a play with him.
What year was this?
This was back in the 90s. It was 96, 97, right in there. And I walked in, and I heard him talking in the other room. And you can't not know that James Earl Jones is in the room. And I didn't know what to call him. So I said, Mr. Jones, Mr. Earl Jones. And he goes, "Call me Jimmy." I just thought, okay, that's what you want me to call him? But I did theater for well over 20 years, and I was doing Tuesdays with Maury, the great Mitch Albom play. Of course, the book and the movie, and Mitch is a prolific sports writer, and he has a show in Detroit on WJR. And he came out and he said, "I loved your work, and I want to bring you to Michigan to do my next play 6 months later." I ended up doing one of his plays. It was not a British play. It was a farce called Duck Hunter Shoots Angel. One day in his office, at WJR, I said, I need a new creative outlet. I've done so much theater. And he said, "I think you'd be a great talk host." And one thing led to another. And it was Mitch who pushed me, kind of compelled me, inched me into talk radio. And I became what was in my 40s. We joked the oldest radio intern in history. And I was screening calls. And I loved every minute of it. And I was told I could do 30 hours a week. But I was really there more like 50 or 60 because I was sneaking into studios, into production studios, and listening to the big hosts, like at KFAN in Minneapolis, Dan Barrero, who is a friend and he is a mentor. And to me, he's the best in the business. And I wanted to learn from the best. So I thought, you can tell me 30 hours, I'm going to do as long as I can.
It's incredible. I mean, you kind of have my dream job. Like when I was growing up as a kid, I loved Dan Patrick and Stuart.
He's great.
He's great. And on the TV side, I was into Stuart Scott and Rich Eisen, and then those guys all.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like everybody's dream. You sit around having a beer with your friends and you're talking about sports, and now you get to do it as a career.
And here's the thing. You're absolutely right. And when I got into talk radio, I was in news talk, and I loved that. But I was never the political screamer. We talked about politics, but I always believed in a 3-word mantra: discourse, not discord. My goal was to get into talk radio and bring civility and respect into it, because I really believe that two people can sit and have a disagreement they should be able to have a disagreement and do it in a way that it's not about winning points. It's not about insulting somebody. It's about simply debating points. If you call my show, my goal is not to turn your opinion around. It's to flesh out what your opinion is and share my opinion and see if we can find any middle ground, but at least go at it from that point of view. But here's the thing, something that you said a moment ago. This is what I tell folks. It is guys sitting around talking about sports, but it's 6 to 8 hours of preparation for every show. And it's one of the things that, are we doing work that's harder than construction work? Hell no. No, of course not. But it is hard work to the extent that you have to know what you're talking about. You have to be ready to deal with any situation, somebody not showing up, a guest giving you an answer that you didn't expect, a guest that comes on that doesn't want to be there, any number of things. And you really have to understand what you're talking about, who you're talking to, what their background is, and every possible angle that you might go on this topic. And that takes a lot of work. The show is the easy part. So it's a joy to do. I always view it as a bunch of us just sitting around at a diner having a beer or having a cup of coffee.
Sure. I mean, it's similar to sports in a way, but, actually playing. Because it's like the practice is much more difficult than the games. You get to the games and it's like,
this is what I enjoy. Player.
Yeah, this is what I enjoy doing is having the game, but it's the work that goes in ahead of time. I mean, I see you're very active on Twitter.
Yes.
Is that a way is that something that helps keep you active and engaged into what's going on in the world of sports?
That's part of it. Yeah, that's a good point. It's part of it, but it's also in today's communication world, we need to service, for lack of a better word, Chris, we need to service our listeners on air, online, on demand. We can't just shut down. Not saying that I just went to Cayucas recently on a little vacation with my family, and we had a great time. We shut down, so to speak.
Sure.
But I want people to engage with me further. If I bring up a point about Jake Haener, starting quarterback Fresno State last year, and I start he was on my show a couple of weeks ago, and I'll ask questions, and we'll start that debate on there, or we'll continue a debate from the show. Or when Nick Shager is on talking about movies, we'll debate whether or not, are the Harry Potter movies better than the Lord of the Rings, and so on. It's just another way to go deeper. It's another layer that we try to find with our listeners, because I don't think that people realize a lot of times that my job is sitting in front of a microphone like this. It's no more special than anybody else. I'm a member of this community. I have kids. I take the garbage out. I cook. I clean. I do laundry. Maybe not as much laundry as I should. But we're members of the community. My kids go to your kids' school. We shop in the same stores. And I think when people realize that you really are fully immersed and fully invested in the community, there's a deeper connection.
I mean, that's such a great point, because I feel like that's exactly what we're trying to do. With the Fuego, it's like we want to feel and let everybody know that we're part of the community. We want to be accessible. We want to have these conversations with people who are also in the community doing incredible things. And I find it to be so important that the community knows that you're part of it as well.
I'm so excited you guys are here. When I heard about you guys, and then the kits are, the T-shirts and the logo, everything's really cool. But you guys your organization is going to fill a need here. I mean, Fresno FC came here. They did a really nice job, and we all understand the reasons why it ended up not working. You're here. In the USL, what is the level?
League One.
League One, okay.
USL League One.
This is we've been here 6.5 years. This is such a soccer crazy community. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Right. And I can't wait for you to get out on the pitch, because it's going to be great to watch you guys.
It'll be really fun. And I mean, I think something that we really like about USL League One, it's third division in the American Pyramid, but what it allows us to do is really recruit local.
Okay.
USL Championship it's at a really high level. And a lot of these guys are players that have played in the MLS, or like Juan Pablo Caffa, who had played in La Liga and come over. And so, I mean, you're getting this international crop of players, which is really cool, and it's a really high level to see. But USL League One really allows you to kind of build from within. So being able to have an academy and a development team, and then have those players build up into your professional team,
that's cool.
It gives it that true hometown feel that you would see in Barcelona, Liverpool, Manchester, wherever, where they're homegrown players. And I think that's really something special.
And I'm just going to tell folks, I'm not sure where the camera's at, but I'm just to tell folks that the merchandise is cool.
It is. Yeah.
It is really cool.
Yeah, Nathan, who's here as our producer tonight, is the designer on all of the
that's good. I walked by that table. It's like, I might have to hang out at this table a little bit longer.
Yeah, and we've got more coming. We're hoping to open our store up in late May, early June, and hopefully when people can kind of get back a little more safely. Yeah. We just did a little tour of our potential little.
It's great. You guys have a nice setup here. It's going to be great when your fans come in here and they get a chance to see everything that's behind what's helping and supporting the players on the pitch. It's going to be great.
It is. Yeah, we're super excited. So, talk to me a little bit about kind of to me, an interesting thing I wanted to ask you about was kind of the state of radio and TV and sports. I feel like a lot of what we see out there in the world is moving to streaming platforms. It's kind of evolving. The world of media is evolving. How have you guys been affected by that? How are you evolving and shifting? What do you kind of see as the future of sports radio?
Yeah, I think what's happening is I think a lot of people want to continue to say that radio is on the way out, and that's just not the case. Edison just did some research for Westwood One, and I think the number was 73% of people still their first choice for news and sports is AM and FM radio, and that is not to suggest that a lot of programming has moved to podcasts and what have you, but the percentage of people that are listening on a daily basis to me, our signal, or anybody on our station, our signal is going from here clear to Sacramento, to the East Bay, to Monterey, and to the north end of the Grapevine. We're 50,000 watts. We cover a wide berth. We can hit a lot of people, and I think the immediacy of radio is something that you can't replicate. Podcasts are great, especially something like as you're setting your roots in this community and you're creating the culture and the vibe through this, and it's great. But for what we do, there's always going to be live sports. Sports is in the moment, and I think radio captures that, television captures that. Some of it's going to move, but I think a lot of it is going to stay right where it's at. As far as what's happened over the last year, a lot of stations have flipped formats because in terms of sports, I knew people around the country that felt like they couldn't find stuff to talk about.
Sure.
And that just wasn't a problem for us. And maybe it's because I come from a news background, and so we just incorporated people like Kevin Michael from the head of aviation at the airport.
Mark Standriff,
who's a good friend.
Great.
Mark Pazin, who's from the Office of Emergency Services. Todd Borick, who's at the Weather Channel, and certainly Dr. Bill Maurice at Mayo Clinic. Nusrat Kadir, a 25-year nurse at New York Presbyterian. You weave in people and you bring in experts along with people like Nick Shager. If we can't find sports stories at the professional, the collegiate, and the high school level to talk about and go beyond statistics, then we're not doing our job, and we don't deserve to have the privilege of having a radio job. And I just think that sometimes, Chris, you have to dig deeper.
Sure.
And that didn't affect us. And there's shows around the country that flourished, and I'd like to think that we were one of them. And I'm going to put it right out there. We had ownership at our building that aggressively said we're staying up. And I'm so glad they did, because as a 50,000 watt station, we may be doing sports, we may be the flagship for Fresno State, but we have a service to be a voice in the community. We need to connect with the community. And if that's talking about what's going on with the Clovis West, Clovis North rivalry, Fresno State water polo, football, whether it's talking about teams that we cover in the Bay Area, the Giants and the A's, or whether it's talking about COVID or it's talking about wildfires, we have a responsibility to be that voice. And there are other voices in the community, but we need to use our platform responsibly.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about when you get in the car, a lot of times you've got your presets and you kind of go to them. So it's like, all right. 940's on. I'm going to tune in and kind of see what's going on in the world today. And I think that's incredible. I mean, that's awesome that you guys were able to do that.
Well, there's going to be people that disagree. I've had people that will write me and say, well, why are you talking about a movie on Friday? Or why are you talking about Bruce Springsteen? And I think a lot of times people don't realize that we keep very accurate records. And so during the course of a week, my show is 14 hours, 3 hours a day, Monday through Thursday, 2 hours on Friday. It's four segments an hour. So that's 12 segments, 48, and then another 8 on Friday. Friday. You think about all the segments that we do, and probably 97, 98% of them are sports. We fill in with some other stuff, the appetizers, the palate cleanser.
Those are the things I really enjoy, to be honest with you.
We have a little segment that we did today that we do every Wednesday called Don't Be That Guy. It's some crazy story out there. We have awkward press conference moments, little things like that, top 5 at 5. Just little things to break it up just a little bit and let people know that humor is important. We like to laugh. We're also in touch with when we had the terrible wildfires that got pretty close to the easternmost point of Fresno County as they get into the mountains. It was incumbent upon me as the afternoon drive host to take you up into there. We had help with our friends from 24 and from 47, and we'll just bring people on because they're up there to let people know here's what's going on. We're part of that community, and we have to be communicators in that way.
Yeah. Speaking of COVID, you got your second shot. I got my second shot.
Yeah, good for you.
Not too long ago. How was your experience?
I am feeling great. I didn't have any side effects except, I don't know how you were. I had it on my left arm, and
Did you do both shots in your left arm?
Both shots.
Okay.
And I feel like somebody beat me with a brick in this arm. And of course, 3 times over the last couple of days, I got it on Saturday. I've walked into walls, which I do anyway, but which was serious pain. But you know what? That's a little bit of frustration and pain for getting a second shot. So, and I feel great that I got it.
Yeah, it's not bad. Mine was not as fun. I mean, I did both in the left arm.
Okay.
First one, no problem, a little soreness. Second one knocked me down I took it at 9, 10 a.m., and then about 2 in the morning, I got the real bad fever chills.
Yeah.
And it lasted, headaches, all that kind of stuff. It lasted till about 3 in the afternoon. I took a nap, woke up. It was like I never got it.
See, when I asked,
it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, and I had Dr. Maurice from Mayo Clinic on my show this week, and I asked him, is there any rhyme or reason, old, young, male, female, etc., why some people are having reactions? He's like, we're just not really sure. Just not really sure why that is. So
yeah, we're all wired a little differently.
We are wired a little bit differently. Yeah, exactly.
So another thing I wanted to talk about is kind of the state of sports. I know, every time I tune into Sports Center in the morning or whatever, station I'm watching, sports has, especially these last couple of years, has really become intertwined with social topics. And so the USL this past week kind of reestablished their United Against Racism campaign, which is great. But how do you find a way to dance and really talk about that? Because a lot of people want to talk about it, but there's also a lot of people, like folks like my parents that are like, we just want to watch a football game. How do you kind of deal with that type of stuff?
Yeah, every station is different, and everybody follows the leadership at their station and how they lay out the game plan, what you're allowed to talk about, how you're allowed to talk about it. Nobody at my station ever tells me what I can or can't do with content, but there's an understanding that we're not a political station. We're not drawing lines that way. But when George Floyd was murdered, I went on the following Monday and did an 18-minute monologue that I called "Race and Racism," but it was very carefully put out. Thank goodness, because I didn't want to put my foot in my mouth. But if we wouldn't have talked about it, if I wouldn't have talked about it, then I would be avoiding the elephant in the room. I would be avoiding what everybody is talking about, from high school classes up to grandparents. And I think the way you talk about it is to present an issue in a way that is, I'm not looking to be offensive. I'm not looking to shock anybody. I'm looking to present an issue faithfully, truthfully, and then offer my opinion and then welcome other opinions. I told you coming in that somebody didn't like the fact that I was talking about the Vancouver Canucks and COVID and expressed his opinion, and I welcome that. But when it comes to social justice, people may not want to hear that, but it's part of who we are right now, and we have to touch on it, because if we don't, we're ignoring the obvious story. And it reminds me of, I had the niece of Martin Luther King on my show a couple of times, Elvita King. And Elvita King, a wonderful lady, and she said, and this is pretty close to how she said it, she said, we are on this walk in life, and whether you are black or white, whether you are conservative or liberal, whether you are Democrat or Republican, whether you are old or young, we have to figure out how to make this walk together, because like it or not, we are making this walk together. It might be idealistic, but she's right. And so on my program, I really try to touch on what's going on. I'm not looking you're going to get my opinion. You're going to get it quite emphatically, but you're not going to get it thrown down your throat. And you're going to come on my show. You're going to call my show. You're going to be a guest on my show, and you're going to be encouraged to share where you're at. I think the way we have to do this is to try to encourage discussion, Chris, and encourage discussion because we've forgotten whether it's social issues, whether we're talking about religion, whether we're talking about sports, and whether we like Manchester City or Man U, whether we like the A's or the Giants, and so on. We've forgotten how to talk to each other because everything has turned into victories. I need to win this point. And it's not about winning a point. It's about communicating, digesting, comprehending, understanding, and then going back and forth. And I think with social justice, like it or not, that ship has now sailed. And I think if we can get to a better place societally, individually, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, our counties, our states, and nationwide, it's going to take some time. I'm not foolish enough to think that we're going to get there really quickly, but if we can find a way to at least make progress, I think that's a good thing. And I think sports radio can help that. And I also think sports radio can hurt it. It's really important on how information is disseminated. And again, it goes back to one simple thing, and that is that a lot of times when people will hear people like me, you mentioned Dan Patrick, could be anybody, national, local, they forget that we do have a right to make our opinion. You don't have to buy it. It's an opinion. But call in, engage, send me an email. Don't send me an email and go into a personal attack on me and my kids. That's not the issue. The issue is what do you think about what happened in Minneapolis? What did you think about what happened in Atlanta? What do you think about what's going on in Portland? If that's what you want to talk about.
Yeah, it's discussion.
Does that make sense? I mean,
it makes a ton of sense, and discussion's really important. That's what I love about podcasts and radio shows and things like that. I mean, I think Twitter and social media has allowed people to make very short sound bites and not really get personal cues and have conversations with each other. And it's, I mean, how many times with your buddies have you disagreed on somebody and you still love them afterwards?
You know, it's a great point that you raise, and it reminds me of an email that I got early on, and it's the importance of listening. A guy wrote me, regular listener to my program, and he wrote me and he said, "I can't believe that you don't think anybody should go back to sporting events until they get the vaccine." And there was no vaccine at the time. And I wrote him back a really nice note, and the crux of what my response was that's not what I said. And I said, I will be happy because you took the time to write such a detailed email. I'll be happy to send you the audio. What I said was, will people be comfortable going back to sporting events before the vaccine is found? There's a key difference in what I said and what he thought I said. And that's where I think a lot of times it points up that people aren't listening as well as are talking. People look to yell and scream and make their point because I think in many cases, and rightfully so, people don't feel like anybody's listening to them. Whether we're talking sports or anything else, people aren't being heard. And boy, do I hear that. And I want people to, if there's a lesson that I have, and when I talk to classes now through Zoom, but when I used to go in person, I would always say the most important part of my job is listening. You have to listen. A lot of times, I've heard talk show hosts, I've heard national ones do it, I've heard local ones do it. They'll ask a question, ostensibly they're listening to the answer, and then they will ask the exact question again. They have forgotten what's going on. They've forgotten where they're at. That's inexcusable. And I think it's an example of we all have moments of not listening.
You just get lost.
You get lost.
You get lost for a second. You're thinking about, I think what happens to a lot of people too is, and when you do this, you kind of have to strategize on how not to do it, but of thinking of what you're going to say next while the other person's speaking.
See, and that's, in theater, it's called playing the end of the scene. If you know in Act 2, Scene 1, in Shakespeare's Measure for Measure, that you are going to grab, if you're Angelo and you're going to grab Isabella and throw her out the door and slam the door, you can't be playing that at the beginning of the scene. You have to build to that moment. And exactly what you just said, you can't be, if I'm not thinking about anything other than responding to what you're saying right now. And if this was my show, when you were on my show, I might have 3 or 4 questions in mind that I want to ask you, but they may go out the window based upon what you say, because what you say has to be what compels the next question, not what's in my mind that I want to act. And that's the key difference.
It's really important. And I mean, another thing that I continue to see is we're not giving each other enough room to change. It's like we want to yell at each other for what we said or tweeted or did this and that, and then more information comes in and you think, shit, I really don't think like that. Maybe I've changed my mind. I have new information. And then you say something new and everybody wants to vilify you for what you said in the past.
That's just so true. And the thing is, people will say, oh, so you're flip-flopping. It's like, no, I have gotten, as you said, I've gotten more information. My opinion has evolved now. Now I have a little more information. And I think that what I thought before about that, I don't think I was right. I think I'm going to go the other way now. You're absolutely right. And changing an opinion, flip-flopping and all this, people like to attach labels to that. But for me, I've done that with my daughters. When they'll tell me something they want to do, and I'm just vehemently against it, and then they might present a different case, as it were. I was like, you know what? That makes sense. I see what you're doing there. Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing, to allow people to evolve.
Heck yes. And you're right. We don't do that enough, and we need to do that more.
Yeah, welcome it. I mean, so you're from the Midwest. You're
Chicago.
from Chicago.
Born and
Chicago
raised.
Bears. Go Bears.
Yeah.
The Bears.
The Bears.
Man, what's going on with them?
Mitchell
Trubisky gone?
It's the same old story. The Bears have not had a good quarterback in 70 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's since Sid Luckman, they have not had a good quarterback.
I mean, McMahon was fun, right?
McMahon was okay, but he was serviceable. They didn't need him to do anything because they had Walter Payton. They had the 46 defense. Nobody could score against them. But they've had talented receivers over the years. They had Walter Payton, of course, who was wonderful. Gale Sayers, who was terrific. They've got a couple of young guys now, David Montgomery and some others, but they cannot get the quarterback position right. Cam Worrell was a safety on the Bears, my co-host on Game Day Live, one of the greatest people you want to meet in this town, and he just says it with me. He's like, the Bears draft beautifully when it comes to defense. They always have, but they can't get anything right offensively, and it is maddening to think. And Bears fans, a lot of them are sick of hearing this, but too bad. Mahomes was there. He was available. Deshaun Watson, I understand everything that's going on with Watson right now, but they were available. But the Bears not only took Trubisky, but they moved up to take him.
It's the most frustrating thing in the world when you think about it. So one of the really interesting parts of dissecting, soccer in terms of American sports is it's operated kind of in a different way, especially worldwide. One thing I grew up loving baseball and football. I played baseball and football. Soccer was the first sport I played, but I really fell in love with baseball and football. And one of the things I've grown to love about soccer, especially international soccer, is that it rewards the winners and it punishes the losers.
Yeah.
You do not get a number one pick to get the best player in the draft if you're the worst team in the league. You get demoted. You go down a level or whatnot. So
what do they call that? Relegation?
Yeah, promotion, relegation. I mean, it's not in this country just yet. I think our country is just a little too large right now. And if you can imagine the LA Galaxy getting relegated and then LAFC getting relegated, and all of a sudden there's no LA TV market in the MLS, that could be problematic.
Absolutely.
Where other countries, it's kind of one individual media, platform often. But it's something that frustrates me about football is the number one pick, and there's no punishment for losing. And you've seen some teams kind of tank, and it frustrates me a bit.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And you've really seen it with the NBA. I mean, when the 76ers tanked a couple of years ago, and baseball, and when the 76ers tanked a couple of years ago, they came right out and basically said it. Now we're doing that. Right. Yep. We want to get the number one draft or a high draft choice. That's what we want to do. And I mean, they've countered that obviously with the weighted ping pong balls, and I just don't know. As a former athlete, you're an athlete. I can't imagine going out there and not trying to win. I just cannot imagine it. Can
you imagine being a player or coach? And I mean, you're fighting for your livelihood and your future, and your organization is not attempting to win.
Right. As an athlete, it is part of your very fabric to go out and win. I mean, we all understand. We grew up with it's not whether you win or lose. It's how you play the game. But if you don't play to win, why play?
Right.
Why play the game?
Yeah. No. So who do you think they're going to pick?
The Bears?
The Bears.
Well, they're picking at 20, I think, and I suspect.
So they lost. Did they have a traded pick or something?
Well, they gave up a lot when they got Khalil Mack. That was number one. I keep thinking that they're going to try to move up a little bit. I suspect if they can move up, it wouldn't surprise me to try to go after a quarterback. Maybe they try to go somebody second level like a Kyle Trask at Florida. What I'm really intrigued.
I watched him this year. He's fun.
He is good. He is good.
Yeah.
I'm really intrigued with what the 49ers are going to do.
Me too.
Because, the thought was Justin Fields. I did my show in Fargo, North Dakota for 6 years. So I'm an NDSU supporter. Trey Lance is the guy that nobody really knows a whole lot about. He's a great player. Mac Jones at Alabama is a lot better than people think he is. They think that because he was throwing to guys like Waddle and Devontae Smith that
incredible players.
But as somebody said on my program today, yeah, he had great first-round draft choices to throw to. He's also going up against tremendous defenses in the SEC. He's still got to read defenses. He's still got to find guys. He's still got to throw into some complicated coverages. And Mac Jones, this year, I think he threw, 41 touchdown passes against 3 or 4 interceptions. So he's a player. So I don't know what the Niners are going to do.
It's exciting to see. There's a lot of Niners fans here, a lot of Raiders fans. I'm a Raider fan myself.
I have guys from Raider Nation Radio on my program all the time.
Sometimes I just wonder what the hell we're doing. It's like we can't. The offense is great. The defense is terrible. Derek Carr seemingly had a huge regression after his injury, now he's kind of made it back and seemingly playing well. But yeah, the Raiders are tough to figure out.
They are, and that first game last year when they went to Carolina and beat them, it wasn't that Carr had this amazing game, and I don't like the term game management, but he put the ball where it needed to be when it needed to be there. He did such a beautiful job running that team that game, and I really got the idea when they were 6-4 that they were on the way to the playoffs, and just like last year, they fell apart again. And it's not just one guy, but Gruden has surprised me. I was wrong. I thought that when they got to Las Vegas that Gruden was going to go a different direction, but he stuck with Derek Carr. Derek Carr is clearly gotten an understanding of Gruden's very complex system. Carr's a great leader. I still think that Derek Carr has top 7, top 8 talent in the NFL. I don't know that we've still seen it. In the one year that they're going to the playoffs, he gets injured.
Right. Yeah, he's such. He was such
he's a great guy.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's a family man. He's a man of faith. He's everything you kind of want in a quarterback. I know everybody's here rooting for him.
Well, and you can't go wrong with that stadium.
Oh my God,
that place
it's incredible.
is spectacular.
I can't wait to get to go.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
So now that people are vaccinated, or I think I saw some number today, something like 30% of California adults or something like that.
Yep.
So, where do you see things coming back in all sports as far as fans go? And
Well, Fresno State just a couple of days ago, yesterday, they announced that their outdoor sports, namely softball and baseball, are going to allow up to 20% of capacity. Fresno State softball, which is just on a roll, they're 25-7, tied for first place with UNLV. They sold out all their tickets.
Wow.
They're 20% for the rest of the year. They've got games against St. Mary's coming up, 3 against Nevada, and then they're going to go to UNLV for a huge 3-game series that will decide the Mountain West and the NCAA bid. But I do think that Fresno State baseball, they go down to USC, they lose in a great game, 2-1. Leave 14 men on base, but I think fans are going to come out. We've all been pent up for so long. Media has been as well.
Sure.
People think that, you're still going to give. No, we're not. We're not doing that. Most of us aren't. I think fans are going to start coming back, and I hope that we do this right. I know that there will be people watching and listening to this that don't believe in masks, that don't believe in getting the vaccination. Everybody has a right to make their own opinion or have their own opinion on that. But I hope that if we're getting close to that corner, right? We're just about to round that corner, and it just feels like we're close to getting to a point where whatever the new normal is, we're going to find that. But we're not quite there yet. And, when I saw the opening game of the Texas Rangers at their new ballpark and they had 41,000 in there, shoulder to shoulder, most people not wearing masks, I asked the Dr. Maurice at Mayo Clinic, what did you think about that? He said, talk to me in 2 weeks.
Sure.
Talk to me in 2 weeks. So I'm excited though because people are pent up, and this whole thing has been awful. And obviously 570,000 people lose their lives, and think about all the families beyond the lives lost, the families that have been affected, and hopefully we can just continue forward on the path that we're on, and we'll certainly see that here at Fresno State.
Yeah, and there's been so much effect of this. I mean, we probably won't see the business end of it for a little while.
Right.
And it's a lot of these, one of the things we're trying to do is lift up local businesses. I mean, we have a small platform in a soccer community, but we're doing everything we can do to try to highlight these local businesses that are trying to make it. And, I think for me and my perspective, it's like, let's just be smart. If you have a loved one at home or you have an illness yourself or something like that, just be smart about it.
Right.
If you're in a situation where you're young and you're healthy and you're vibrant and you want to make that choice, that's your freedom. And I think, that should be your right. And so I'm excited to see people get back. I know to me, sports, as a kid, I don't know where I would be if I didn't have sports.
Same.
And so to be able to get these kids back out playing, college students back out playing, I think it's so crucial to our society to have sports back.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's great. My kids, I asked them at various points during when everybody was locked down or what have you in school, and I said, are you enjoying being at home, or do you? And they both, without hesitation, we want to be back in school. We want to be back in school, and I think.
Did they stay? Was their school open at all, or have they been home the whole time?
They've been home the whole time, but then they started. When they got back, they were going 2 days a week, and now they're going back 4 days a week. One's in high school, one's in middle school, and my wife is a librarian at an elementary school. She had been going in every day, but what's impressed me is that they're in Clovis Unified, and what's impressed me is the measures that they have taken to ensure safe distancing, everybody being healthy. You hear the CDC saying that they have found minimal, at best, at most, minimal transmission in schools. And I think schools have, at least I can speak for the schools here that I've seen, have gone out of their way to do this right, and to make the environment as safe as possible, to put the health and welfare and safety of the kids first. And I'm glad the kids are back. I can feel a little more pep in their step with my daughters, and that's just really cool to see.
It's incredible to think, down the road, 30, 40 years from now, their experience, and they went through something that, and you think about, the Spanish flu is very different, but you think about these prior pandemics, and it's like, these kids missed a year of school. And it's got to be kind of crazy for them.
Yeah, it's a great point, and some of us take it for granted. I think I did for a while. Certainly, just it's really unfortunate, these seniors. And then you start talking to some and you get a hold of some on the program, my program, and you realize it's something that's so tied into them, and it speaks to your point from a moment ago about how important sports were for us growing up. Well, it's important to them. They're missing sports. They're missing their camaraderie with their friends. They're missing their senior proms. They're missing gathering in the lunchroom or just hanging out between class, when they don't have a period to go to. All of that was wiped away for a year. And same with colleges. And it's a year. They're far more resilient than I think I would ever have been. And my girls, and I've seen their friends, and they've all handled it beautifully. And I think that speaks also to parents and how, just how parents have really tried to help navigate this, because all of us, we don't know any more than they do. And we're all trying to, there's no manual for, go to page 37 on
we can't
pandemic.
Figure out Common Core, let alone pandemic.
Right, exactly.
Well, it's really, it's good to hear that they were able to do well through it. There's got to be just a ton of kids out there that went through, as a kid myself, it's like you go through depression just kind of growing up and trying to figure out what the hell life is.
Absolutely.
To be stuck at home. Thank God there's this last 10, 20 years, content is through the roof. So you've got so many different platforms to be able to keep yourself busy and engaged. But one of the things that bothered me about the whole situation was, something that's been successful is it seems like people who are healthier tend to be able to fight it off a little bit better. And there wasn't a ton of thought process or anything put out to find ways to keep people healthy, keep them active, keep them outside running or doing some type of sports activities that give people an immunity to fight this off. It's something I think we missed on.
I've asked our doctor from Mayo, Dr. Maurice, about that very thing. And I asked him, I think probably back last July, right around there, July, August. And he said, I remember him saying, and I'll paraphrase, that at that point, none of us really knew which direction we should push people, because they knew it was airborne and they knew how it was transmitted. But obviously, early on, we heard that masks weren't going to be a good thing, and then suddenly they were a good thing, and people wanted to basically crucify Fauci and everybody else. But I think it just shows that no matter how brilliant you are, we're all learning this thing together. And I think the shifting tides of knowledge, and as they got more and more and more, I don't know that they knew how to direct anybody, because I'm with you. Is it, if I run, if I take a jog, if I take a walk around the block, do I need to wear my mask? Do I need to be 6 or 7 feet from anybody that's walking the other way? I don't know that anybody knew.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah, it's like when you try to figure all this stuff out as you're moving along, I mean,
it's like you're creating a recipe in a kitchen, in your kitchen, for something new, and you've got
as
your
you're
spices
cooking it.
as you're cooking it.
Right.
Well, I think this should work, and this might work, and these seem like they go together. Oops, that didn't work.
The chicken's already overcooked.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, I'm happy. It feels like we're turning the corner. It's
Same.
getting the vaccine for me personally feels like I'm being a little safer.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable now. I feel.
Well, there's 3 of us in here talking.
Yeah, and it's something that personally has made me more comfortable.
I'm with you. I mean, it was almost emotional getting the first shot, because I thought, for all the months that we were wondering, would there be a vaccine? Now there's a vaccine, and now there's a second one. Now there's a third one. There's other ones that are being manufactured, and then this one's on hold now. And suddenly you're sitting there, and I don't know how you were, but the first one that I got, and the shot's going into my arm.
So fast.
Just like that.
So fast.
And then the second one, when I didn't have a reaction, I text Dr. Maurice, and I said, did they shoot the wrong juice in me? I mean,
am I placebo?
Yeah, isn't something supposed to be happening? Because nothing's happening here.
Yeah, no, that's good that you didn't have much of a reaction.
Yeah, so I guess so. I don't know why, but
yeah, lucky you. You're a strong man.
Well, I don't know about that, but
well, looking forward now. I mean, in a way, we're lucky that we plan on starting in 22, because we're not having to deal with all these crazy COVID protocols.
Yeah.
I mean, the USL actually did, I think, a really exceptional job last year. They were one of the first professional leagues to get back to play, along with, obviously, I think UFC kind of set the standard on.
Yeah, Dana White was all over it. Yeah.
He was all over it, and he was aggressive, and he found ways to get it done, and it seems like they've done it in a very safe way. So, but I'm looking forward to next year and getting back on the field. I did an interview with the USL a week ago, and they said, "What are you most excited about?" And I said, "The games." I cannot wait for the games.
Yeah, and I mean, and so I'll take what you're saying, and I'll transpose it to Fresno State football, because both, Fresno State football, the excitement of a new team, starting here in Fresno. We're going to see fans in the stadium. Fresno State had a 4-8 year after a couple of really great years. One, winning it all, and then going and winning the Las Vegas Bowl, beating Arizona State. And now we see that there's some new talent, and everybody's excited. And now you're here, and everybody really, I mean, they were, at times it felt like Fresno FC was outdrawing the Grizzlies. And that may be inaccurate, but the excitement for them was great. They leave. You fill an immediate void. And I'm as excited to see you guys out there as anybody, because it's taken me a long time not to learn the game of soccer, but to appreciate the game of soccer. And it was something that for years I couldn't appreciate, because I was dialed into scoring. I wasn't dialed in properly to the skill and how defenders are working and strategy. I'm still not sure I understand offsides. I try to, but I'm excited because you guys are going to bring something that this community has a passion for. And I think people are going to turn out for. I think there's going to be just the fans who are already there for Fresno FC. They're going to be right there with you.
They are, and it's an incredible thing to think of the last 20 years of soccer, here in the Central Valley. And the Fresno Fuego came about. They were 14 years in the making, bouncing all over the place, playing games wherever they could find a home. Then they get to Chukchansi Park, begin to grow. A supporters club is established. Then professional soccer comes to Fresno. There's a lot of excitement that built, and Fresno FC. I mean, I think a lot of people unfortunately think, the business failed, and maybe you can understand that, or the stadium situation pushed them out. But when you look at it on paper, you're right. There was a lot of fans that were coming to matches.
Yeah.
I mean, they were competing in the top half of the league in terms of attendance every week. Corporate sponsorships and partnerships in the area were fabulous, top half of the league. So the model's there. It's figuring out, the rest of the stuff that we're working on that's going to get it there. But we know people are excited. We know that the last 10 years, people are in, like you and like me, they're learning the game in detail. And they're being able to watch EPL on Saturday, Sunday, Monday mornings and seeing top-level players become, international stars, and they're recognizing the athletes, and MLS is improving. The NWSL on the women's side is improving. We now have American women playing for Manchester United and Man City and all these other women's clubs that are being formed around the world. So I think soccer, to me, feels like it's in the best place in this country that it's ever been.
And I think for somebody like me, growing up, and probably similar to you, when I grew up in Chicago, I understood baseball, but I appreciated it and learned it more because I would go to Comiskey Park and Wrigley Field. I was able to go and see them. But in a lot of situations, we haven't really had those teams to go see and rally around, and they weren't maybe when we did have a team. I remember when I was in Philadelphia, there was the Philadelphia Atoms, and I remember seeing a Cosmos match up at Giant Stadium when there were 75,000 people in green and yellow when Pele was
incredible.
But for me, when FC was here, and even when I first got here, when Fuego was here, being able to go and see a game, see a match, it deepens the understanding, because what you think you watch play out in front of you, and it's a whole different experience. And so now that you guys are here and you're a professional club, new fans will be able to go and say, okay, well, I think I understand this. I like this about the game. I don't understand this. And they can go and see it for themselves. Yep. And there's a certain level when you're seeing players who are professional versus high school or college, it's a different level.
It's a game changer.
It really is.
It's a game changer. I remember going to my first NBA game. I went to a Lakers game. Grew up. My dad is from LA, so huge Lakers fan. And it was the Pau Gasol, Kobe Bryant era.
Right.
It was the first NBA game I ever got to attend. But I was sitting way up, so I didn't. It wasn't crazy. Well, then I started working in sports, got some connections, and I got to sit almost courtside at Kings versus Cavaliers. And I saw LeBron James from this far away, and I realized this is probably the largest human being I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's almost the same thing in soccer. I mean, people see kids play soccer. They see high school players play soccer. But when you came out to a Fresno FC match and you saw 6'4", 6'5", 6'3", these huge defenders, the goalkeeper that's just massive, looks like he's LeBron James out there.
Right.
You're like, these are real athletes. These are big athletes.
Yeah, you're right. And it's funny that you should say that, because on my program today, we were talking about how you'll watch a baseball game and you'll say, why did he swing at that? And if you sit behind home plate and you see the pitch come in and you see how fast it comes in, you understand it's a whole different thing. Getting up close and watching soccer, and for me, the magic was watching how they would dribble, or is that the right term?
Yeah.
Or move the ball, but seeing how fast their legs move, the control, the ball at times looked like it was attached to these guys' feet, and that was something that I don't know that I had a full appreciation of watching on TV until seeing it in person and really getting a chance to be up close and on the field, with a media pass.
Right.
Like, holy cow, this is totally different than I thought it was.
The skill set is incredible. The athletes are incredible. One of the things I enjoy watching the most is set pieces like corner kicks.
Love those. Yeah.
And you see these guys. I mean, the physicality that goes on in there. I mean, it's like the trenches in a middle of a fullback, a running back sweep to the left.
And
you
getting
see
off
it's
the
like
ground.
Getting out.
The amount of elevation that they're getting. Yeah.
Right. It's incredible to watch. And then to see a header go in is just like, and the crowd go nuts. I mean, that was one of the things that hooked me into soccer was the fans. I mean, the supporter clubs, the drumming. It's incredible.
It's a whole culture. It really is. When I was performing in Europe, in Great Britain, and I had a chance to see, a match in Scotland. It was just like a little. It wasn't a premier type league, but because I don't even know if they had it then. But I do remember seeing a match in Liverpool. We went back down, and It was wild. It was. I mean, everybody was just like
Right.
right up next to each other. I don't know that we ever sat down.
No.
The whole time, but it was like being at a college football game.
Right.
It had that feel and the singing, and I don't know what anybody was doing.
You'll never walk alone. Yeah, I mean, my first the only EPL game, I actually went to a Champions League game in Liverpool.
Okay.
And it was against Napoli. And
It was the same stadium.
Yeah, Anfield. Yeah, and when they sang that song, I mean, I just got goosebumps. It's like 60,000 people in unison singing the same song. I was completely hooked.
See, I'm a lifelong Tennessee Volunteers fan, and it's like when you're in Neyland Stadium and 102,455 are singing Rocky Top.
Yeah,
and so I get it. It is something. It is such a communal event that just shakes you in the best possible way to your core, and it's these kinds of moments that you're sharing with everybody. It ends up whether you win or lose. Remember that night when we went and saw Liverpool and Chelsea or whatever? It's just one of those kinds of feelings, and from the beginning of the game, through the game, and after the game, because after the game you're having a couple of beers and you're all talking through the whole game.
Right. Yeah, soccer's got this interesting culture where the game is fairly short. Baseball, you're there for 3-4 hours. Maybe you come an hour early, so you're there for a long time. Same thing with American football, but in 90 minutes of a soccer match with the 15-minute, halftime, it's not long enough. So people kind of come before and they still are amped up at the end of the game. They're not exhausted, ready to go home. They want to go out and party and they want to hang out with each other. And I think that's one of the cool things about this level of soccer and Fuego in the past is I remember we used to have games at Chansey Park, and then right afterwards the players, the staff, and the fans, we'd all be together at Tioga Sequoia having drinks together. And that type of community feel is what I think that we just desperately need.
Now, I see the scarves in front of me here. Now, how hard is it to sell the people on the idea of the scarves in July in Fresno?
So these particular scarves are throwback scarves. These are cotton ones, and they're pretty.
They're cool. They're really cool.
They're cool. They're heavy, but they're actually summer scarves.
So
summer scarves, they're very
ventilated.
Very light, yeah,
Nice.
very airy. So we'll probably do a whole bunch of those because
very cool.
It's a little too hot.
People are going to wear them anyway, right? They're going to come. They're going to wear them.
And for the most part, they're decor, but they also tend to have messages on them, and people kind of use them and then put them down.
And we're looking at red, white, and black.
Red, white, black, and then we've added green.
Okay.
So that was something that we added new to Central Valley Fuego versus Fresno Fuego, and we wanted to tie into the whole valley.
Makes with the green V. Like
the green
Fresno
V on
State.
Fresno
State
State was
like
inspiration. Obviously, a huge Mexican-American influence here in the Central Valley.
So you pick it up the Mexican flag a little bit. With
you get a little bit of those things.
I like
so
that.
So that back there is actually a flag
that's very cool.
Yeah, we're excited. We're super excited.
Yeah, as you should be. That's a good logo.
Yeah, thank you.
Did Nathan design that?
Nathan designed it.
Nice. All right.
He did. Shout out to Nathan again.
Yeah.
Well, Christopher, thank you so much for being on with us. We really appreciate it. We hope to get to do this more often.
Absolutely. You'll have to come back to my program for sure. This was the pleasure was all mine. It was I was delighted to get the invite, and anytime you want me to join you for anything, I am all yours.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
See you, everybody.